To me, the most exciting thing about UDL is that its emphasis on variety and experimentation, especially in the higher ed space. So much of what we do is based on ritual and routine and just the way that things have been done for dozens and sometimes hundreds of years. UDL cracks that open by challenging instructors to try to find new ways of engaging students and new ways of presenting content and new ways of talking to their students about what they've learned and what they want to learn. One of the classes that I teach is an advanced writing class, and the students in that class spend the entire semester researching and drafting and finalizing a single research paper. And one of the steps that I've always thought was pretty helpful in that process was compiling an annotated bibliography. An annotated bibliography is a highly stylized form of presenting research that presents a citation for a particular source, describes it with a summary and some detail, and then has an analysis paragraph where the student describes their response to that. And like I say, this has been working really well for me. But one of the things that I wanted to do with UDL was try to find new ways of getting students to do what the annotated bibliography was supposed to do for them. And I was inspired in this a challenge by a specific student who had certain special needs and who was simply not going to respond to the requirements of the structured formula of the annotated bibliography assignment. At the same time, this particular student was an extremely proficient researcher and someone who knew a lot of information about, not just about the content that he was interested in, but also about how to get information and how to compile it and how to compare different sources. So inspired by this student and by the UDL framework, I decided to try to break up the annotated bibliography by thinking about it not in terms of what kind of document I wanted the students to prepare, but to think about it in terms of the kind of thinking that I wanted them to do and what I wanted them to get out of it. And when I started thinking about it from that student-centered perspective, it occurred to me that a lot of the requirements of the annotated bibliography assignment as it already existed were unnecessary and possibly even counterproductive because they distracted the student from the real point, which was supposed to be the research itself. So working closely with this student and another group of students in the class, we reimagined the annotated bibliography assignment to be much more engaging and much more multimedia, so that not only were students describing what they learned from their sources in a slightly different way, but also the sources themselves that they were able to access and to learn about were tended to be less traditional kinds of sources, and in a way, sources that were much more conducive to doing the kind of research that they were doing in the 21st century. So reworking this annotated bibliography assignment was not only helpful for this one student who was able to thrive under these new conditions, but it actually helped all the other students in the class to think about new ways of doing research. And it also inspired me to think about new ways of thinking about what research is in the first place and why people do it. The next thing that I want to try to accomplish with UDL is to think not only about individual assignments in my writing classes, but to try to rethink the entire idea of writing itself. Universal design for learning is supposed to be universal, but a lot of students have challenges with the mechanics, with specific, very, very specific aspects of writing as a form of communication. And one of my challenges ever since I started working with UDL has been to try to experiment with different strategies for thinking about writing in new ways. So, obviously in the 21st century, we're accustomed to the idea that writing can take place in different formats, and that writing might be, maybe a better word would be composing, where students are putting together YouTube videos and podcasts and all these other kinds of media. But at the same time, I think as a writing instructor, it's important to me that writing as a skill continue to be an essential part of what students go to college to learn. So I've been trying in different kinds of ways to approach this question in a number of different ways. And the UDL framework across the board has been instrumental in providing inspiration and new ideas and new ways of thinking about writing itself, so that we can make writing classes as accessible and as unintimidating and as useful to students as we possibly can.